Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you. I agree with my colleagues. This has been a really informative discussion. Let me follow up, because this was the question I was going to ask you, Mr. Tudor, was what is the appropriate time frame? And you said 2040. Why 2040?
I don't think, first of all, I don't think hydrogen or carbon capture will be ready anytime soon. Mm-hmm. I think our best opportunity for having a real resource that can replace fossil fuel plants is small modular reactors, which is nuclear. The problem there is the permitting process and the cost that these organizations have to spend to get through that permitting process is enormous, and ultimately that results in a cost of a small modular reactor of close to 10 times more expensive than a brand new gas-fired plant. Over time, I think those costs will come down, but they need the time to develop that product, and when I develop it, deploy it, test it, so it can be financeable. Banks are not going to loan money on something they don't know whether it works or not, especially in advance when your cost curve is so high and over so many years. The first SMR scheduled to come online is in 2029 with a company called NuScale. We have signed a letter of intent with NuScale specifically, as well as GE Hitachi, to track this technology and consider it, but we don't see it happening until 2035. And we don't even know if it works yet.
So let me ask you this. And it goes back to what Senator King was saying, is we knew about extreme weather impacting and making this change and directing us to do something years ago. So if the administration doesn't put out some sort of incentive or goal marker or something out there, how can we ensure the industry and people, it's not just the federal government, right? The regulation comes at the state level, public utility commissions, local regulation, we all know that. How will we ensure, and then the industry, everybody's gonna work towards that goal? And so I guess this is a question for Dr. Lott, because you touch on this in your testimony, and I appreciate that, which is this idea that there is a role at the federal level. The U.S. regulatory framework for the electricity sector is overseen by state legislatures and public utility or service commissions. But you identify that the federal government has a role, and then you list a number of things. One of the things you talk about is that Congress could consider strengthening requirements for risk assessment and mitigation planning in power sector planning processes. Can you discuss that? And would that address what we are trying to achieve here without putting a time? We need an off-ramp of some sort, and for everybody to be a part of this. Would that help pull in this conversation what we need to be thinking about?
Thank you for the question. It's a great one. When we talk about the integration of how we plan our energy systems, what I'm highlighting in my testimony is that we have tools available today. They exist largely within our national labs, specifically Argonne National Lab. I'll give an example in a second, where we can do energy systems planning, and we use those models in conjunction with climate models that capture these changes that are already happening, that are already in progress today, in a way that allows us to design a system that will be reliable, resilient, and affordable moving forward. Right now, those models don't talk to each other. The specific example I was alluding to is a partnership between the New York Power Authority and the National Lab and Argonne National Lab to actually do this kind of risk assessment. We've seen this done outside of the energy sector for the telecommunications sector. Florida, AT&T, how should we build out our network of wires there to keep comms up? And we can do that now for the energy system. So we aren't not seeing risks that we already are facing today and therefore unable to invest to address
But not
them.
all power authorities are doing this. Not all power authorities are partnering with labs to do this risk modeling, correct?
And there is a tremendous opportunity to make it so that those risks have to be included
and you
have
think
to be
there's
considered.
a role for Congress to play to
Absolutely.
incentivize somehow or mandate that type of modeling being done?
Because the risks are happening. We have the science and modeling and technology to assess it. So there's an opportunity for Congress to act to make sure that we are assessing that risk.
Okay, that's helpful. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Senator Cortez Masto, I wanted to answer part of your question around timing as well. Like more than half of our queue is solar. Solar works. It's here today. We need to accelerate it. I mean, I don't think it's a binary thing where we'll get to a date and we'll be ready. I think we're going to transition. The transition is happening now. I think we need to make the new generation come faster. It's just a question of the existing generation that firms the grid. I think we need it. It'll probably run less. as the new generation comes in, because the new generation has a zero marginal cost. So we'll dispatch it first. But when it dries up, when we don't have sun, we do need the backup. So that's the issue. I don't think we should think of it as there's a date and then we'll be ready. I think it's happening now.
Mr. Robb, you feel the same way?
No, I agree with that. I think keeping the foot on the gas on the deployment of renewable generation, deployment of batteries, development of new technologies such as small modular reactors, long duration storage, all that needs to pursue at an extraordinary pace. We just need to keep the other stuff around because we need to have that in case of emergency break glass capacity we can rely on.
Thank you. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Tudor has one response to that. Is that all right? I know my time is up.
Let it go.
Okay, Mr. Tudor.
I think the IRA funding will actually be the incentive that's needed to continue this path for the development of renewables. I don't think you need anything else. I think it's going to cause it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.